Are you looking to make your way into tech? Here are 22 things to consider as a sales engineer.
All right, so let's start off, man. So if you were sitting at a barbecue or party with friends, I just want to establish the climate of sales engineering. But if you were sitting at hanging out at a barbecue or, sitting at a dinner table with family, friends, or people who work in something non-technical, like a food chef, a psychologist, or a nurse, like, how would you explain to them what is a sales engineer?
I wouldn't. But hey, if I were to give it a shot in between bites of food, because as you can tell, I like to eat, I would say I help solve customers' business problems using technology. My company has a bunch of technology. Customers have a bunch of problems, and I try to figure out how I can help them solve it.
Okay. And as you're taking a bite, like what do you think you'd be eating at a barbecue?
Steak. Hopefully there is steak. Otherwise, it'll be a burger. Well, whatever is there, I'll eat whatever.
Nice. So you got your way into tech initially by encouragement of your father, from your father. Your dad noticed that you were very passionate about playing video games, and he said, just to paraphrase, Ramzi, since you love playing video games, you would make a good career in tech, which was where you made your first start in telecom, a tech company doing telecom, right? Telecommunications.
Yep.
So after that start, though, what was the inspiration that made you say, I'm going to stay in tech and furthermore, get into sales engineering and stay in sales engineering?
To stay in tech, I really didn't know anything else. I mean, my options were to either stay in tech or go do physical education. I enjoyed gymming, and I've helped people work out in the past. And I came from Lebanon, and you don't make money as a gym owner or instructor. So tech was the only thing I knew. Now, what made me go into sales engineering, it's the 100% honesty here. I was in a crap load of debt because I had a Lebanese wedding. Lebanese weddings are expensive because you invite people you don't know to come to your wedding. Like, I had 260 people, bought a house, whatever. So I was in debt, and I was severely underpaid as a network design engineer. And so I just started applying to roles, and I applied to a role that's called systems engineer. I didn't know what it was. It said work with customers, 3 to 5 years experience working with customers, need to know certain technologies which I already knew. So I just applied to it, and I got the job. So I joined not knowing what the role is, and things have changed since then, I would say.
Okay, so hearing that you were in debt with your marriage, man, I'm thinking, people are struggling with the student loan debt. It got me thinking, what kind of debt would one want to be in? You just added a new kind of debt that I would have preferred being in, which would perhaps be a marriage debt, a love debt, than to be in a school debt. You're now a sales engineer. You have said before you're a hybrid sales engineer. What does that mean?
Salesperson is the person who's usually trying to find the deals and close the deals. Basically, they're doing the bookends, whereas a sales engineer comes in the middle and tries to understand what the problem is and solve it through technology. We don't have to close deals. We don't have to find opportunities. Although if we do, it makes you better at your job. We don't have to negotiate. There is no cold calls. We just come in, do the fun part, do the presentation, and do the demo, do the proof of concept, and walk out. The salesperson has to do the rest of the work. As a hybrid, I'm doing both. Like, I'm part of the sales cycle from beginning all the way to post sales in my career. And post sales means just supporting the customer after they buy.
So you were on the James Kakis Pre-Sales Collective podcast, where he asked the question about the hybrid sales engineer role and the future of tech. I want to ask this question in a slightly different way. Do you think as times advance that the tech industry might want to take out the account executive or sales rep role and make the sales engineer as the representative that handles the accounts, deals, solving the technical and business parts? Do you think the account executive role would be obsolete in 10 years? Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't think so. And that's just my personal opinion. There's a certain personality to do sales. Like, you're tough skinned, you don't care if you're rejected, and you just go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle all the time. Sales engineering, although people like hustle and work hard, as engineers, we don't like being rejected. We like to solve problems. And if we can't solve a problem, we'll just bang our head against it until we figure out we can solve it, or, you know, we just give up at some point. So the personalities of the two people you're trying to merge into one is not there. I was a hybrid sales engineer, not by choice. I was kind of pushed into that role. And I never wanted to do it. I never wanted to go into sales because I hate it. I mean, I enjoy the aspect of negotiating with the customer and talking to them, but there's a lot more to it than just, you know, with every job, there are fun parts, and there are like the paperwork and the funnel reviews and all that. And those are not fun. So SEs, I don't think most SEs would want to do it. Otherwise, they just go into full sales right now. And we wouldn't have any SEs left. But most of the SEs stay as SEs for 10, 15, 20 years. Or they move up the stack as sales managers. I think the sales engineering skills is shifting from being just sales support to being a sales partner. Right? We're getting more sales savvy as sales engineers, and that's the whole point of the podcast, is to work on, like, to talk about the sales skills that SEs don't have and they should have, or the sales engineering skills, whether it's through the consulting with the customers, through asking discovery questions and trying to understand what the problem is. Because unlike, like, people compare sales engineers to doctors, where patients go to visit doctors. The difference is, a lot of times the patients will tell the doctors everything that they're feeling and more, whereas when you're a sales engineer, the customer may be on guard and they don't want to give you all the information. So as a sales engineer, you're going to have to develop that relationship, which is hard for some engineers because we're engineers. I want to work with computers, not with people. We have to kind of develop that relationship, find the right ways to ask questions, know when to push, know when to move back. So that's where sales engineering is going. I don't think we'll ever get rid of salespeople. I don't want to get rid of them. They do an awesome job with what they do. I will never want to do that job, although I am doing it today. So yeah, I think that I hope that answers that question.
From what I'm gathering, and if you could clarify for me, I feel like there's more, I don't know, I feel like there's more of like a compassion component, a more of empathy, a more supportive. Sounds like the sales engineer is a little bit more of the supportive figure, the more helpful person, the one who wants to coach and help people win. I mean, I don't know, like, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's hard to generalize. Like, salespeople get a bad rep. Like, when you think of a salesperson, you immediately, most people, when I talk to them, they think car salesman, and you know that's a no-go. They don't want to talk to them. But the salespeople that I've worked with, they care, right? They really, or at least most of them care. And I've talked to sales engineers who care about the product more than the customer. So it depends on the characteristics of the person you're working with. If the customer insults my product, I take it personally. Yeah. Because I love my product, but that's not the point of sales engineering. The point of sales engineering is to solve the customer's problem. If they're complaining about something in my product, I, as a sales engineer, need to understand why. I, as a salesperson, need to do the same. Like, why are they complaining about my product? What's pushing their buttons? What are they pissed off about? So I wouldn't say SEs care more than salespeople. I think they care about other things. Salespeople are incentivized to close deals. Generally speaking, they're commission-based, and a big portion of their income is from commission. So although they might be paid well as a base, depending on the company, some aren't, and some on like 100% commission, and they just need to sell. And depends on how they're incentivized. If they make enough base, they don't have to get greedy. They don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from. So you see that with those kinds of salespeople, or salespeople in those situations. But I've worked with salespeople with integrity who don't care whether they're not going to get paid or they are going to get paid. They just want to do what's best for the customer. So I wouldn't generalize saying that SEs care more than salespeople. I think they care about different things, and we have to shift both SEs and salespeople have to shift their focus to the customer. And a lot of them already do. It's just those who don't, they need to do that.
Gotcha. What is the day-to-day tasks normally comprised of for a sales engineer?
The thing about sales engineering is you don't have 2 days that are similar, but like within a week, you're going to have a lot of customer meetings. And those customer meetings could be for discovery calls, could be for demonstrations, could be for pricing calls or presentations about like a proposal or a bill of material, as in like that's where you're going to end up buying. Or it could be a complete waste of time because the salesperson didn't qualify them properly, or the SDR entity didn't actually.
I'll be different in my case.
Didn't get the right information, right? So you end up, there's a lot of waste of time, but also there's a lot of preparation. You have to do a discovery. You need to prepare and understand a little bit more about the customer, kind of like what you did for the show. I mean, you're bringing up things that I said maybe over a year ago or 2 years ago, and I don't even remember saying them, but I sound like a genius. So thanks for bringing them up. There's a lot of that research. There's also, if you want to do a demo, you have to prepare for the demo, prepare stories. In my case, there's a lot of managerial work in terms of like, I need to get equipment to the customer site, right? Or there's a lot of support. Customers having issues, I need to help them. I need to jump on a call and try to solve their problem, because although they have support, sometimes it takes longer. And we mentioned earlier about post-sales leads to pre-sales. If you support your customer well, they're going to keep buying from you. If you don't support the customer well, they're not going to keep buying from you. And that's where customer success comes in. In some companies, in my company, we do everything as the pre-sales team. A lot of internal meetings, I have big customers who are global. So we jump on a weekly call with a global account manager for those customers, 3 or 4 of them. Product meetings with internal teams. There's a lot of learning that you need to do because features always come up and you have to stay on top of things. Maybe I should do like a week in the life of a SE at some point, but it's hard to quantify. Like, again, 2 days are not similar. A lot of follow-ups, and that's some of the boring stuff. You go into a meeting, you go into the discovery call, you have to write like an essay afterwards as a follow-up email, and then a lot of following up with the customer. Hey, did you get my email? You said you wanted to do this. Are you still going to do this? So it's a lot of like interaction. A lot of it is interaction with customers and internal teams, product management teams, sales teams, technical marketing teams, and some learning on the side, usually late at night, like it is right now, right here, as you can see from the darkness.
For an aspiring sales engineer, like who's trying to find their way into a company, what industries should they focus on and why?
They should focus on the industries that they know. So if someone's in healthcare, they should try to work for a vendor for healthcare stuff, right? If someone's is a gym owner and now he wants to become, or she wants to become an SE, they should work with companies who sell equipment to gyms or sell software to gyms. Especially if someone's like from outside the technology. Like I knew the technology because I worked for a big company that works with the technology. And then I went to the vendor who uses the same technology. So I knew the space, I knew the customers, and I knew the technology. So it made it easy for me when I first switched. And you should try to have 1 or 2 of those, like whether it's industry knowledge, technical knowledge, or customer knowledge. So if you can combine some of these, find out where you work. And a lot of times people end up working with vendors without even knowing. Like before I became an SE, I've attended demo calls with SEs. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Turns out there was an SE doing a demo. Yeah. So if you're in that space, try to connect with your vendors, because they would want you as a sales engineer because you already know the customers.
What's the difference between a demo and a presentation?
A presentation is like a PowerPoint slide where you're talking about the products and what you offer and how you can help them solve it. A demo is you're walking through the product, or you're showing them the product live, and you're basically telling the story by going through it of how the product can solve their problem, right? Because anyone can fake a presentation, right? But it's hard to fake demos. That's why people worry about demos crashing in front of a customer, like live crashes and all that. So that's the big difference between the two. It depends on the company you're working for. Like I use like a few slides before doing a demo. Like, so I'm doing a small presentation before jumping into a demo. Some people do that. There could be like product presentation where the product manager comes in and just walks through the products and like the roadmap presentations. So there are different presentations for it. And generally speaking, from what I found, these are all the same presentation. Doesn't matter which customer. They might skip a few slides here and there, but it's the same presentation. Demos, if the demo was qualified, as in if the SE went and met the customer and asked the right questions and figured out what the problem is, then they should be customizing it to fit the customer's needs. A lot of times SEs don't get the chance to do that because the salesperson didn't know that they should, or the process is salesperson, SDR talks to the customer, a salesperson talks to customer, schedules a demo for SE, and then SE shows up and does the same thing. And there are many tools out there right now that are there to overcome it, like Consensus or Navtech or Walnut, and I'm not affiliated with any of these. But their whole point is to have a pre-recorded demo, whether it's video or interactive, and gets the customer to go through it before they bring in an SE. Because if an SE is doing the same demo 5 different times in the same day for 5 different customers, you don't really need an SE. You need a recording. You just send them the recording, and it's at that point it's a waste of space, that SE. But if you send them the recording and now they have more questions, now they can bring in the SE and ask, so that they can do a proper discovery and then do a customized demo. So different demos for different industries and different companies, I guess.
Great salespeople tell great stories, but looking respectively at the sales engineer, when does this storytelling take place? And what does telling a story as a sales engineer look like? What does it feel like? Give me an example of how one should tell their story, whether it's to an interviewer or a prospective customer.
Okay, so these are 2 different things. Like interviewer as in for a job interview?
Yeah.
Okay, so stories can be at any point in time, right? I that YouTube video that I talked about today, I just shared a story to point out something. So if I'm doing a discovery with a customer and I feel like the customer isn't giving me all the information for one reason or another, I could share a story about, I've worked with other customers who are hesitant to give me all the information, but once they were able to actually trust me and give me that information, we were able to solve their problem, and now they haven't been happier since, for example. And it has to be true, right? You can't just make up stuff. Today, I was on a call with a customer and they were refusing, like, because I'm a hybrid, I was trying to figure out the budget, and they were kind of refusing to give me a budget. And I shared the story with them. Like, I've been through meetings with customers where we've done these elaborate presentations, elaborate demos. And then when we finally come to talk budget, they wanted $1 million solution, but they only have 5K. Like, is that what you want? And they're like, oh no, that makes sense why you're asking me that question, right? Because everybody's worried about giving information. So now we have an idea of what their budget is, and it's healthy and it fits within what we can offer. So we're going to move on to the next steps. It could be a story of how a customer was struggling, and the customer is always the hero of the story. You're kind of like the old wise man guiding them through it. You can tell them, you can share a story of how customers were struggling. Now they're using your product, and then they made back their money, or they saved time, whatever it is that you're trying to convey to the customer. And there are a lot of books about the hero's journey, from a nobody to running into problems to overcoming the problems and becoming a hero. And that's what you want to take your customers through. And that's from a customer's perspective. Let me pause here. does that answer the question that you're about the customer's perspective?
It does. You know, initially I was going to say, so you don't start it off with once upon a time, do you? You know,
You could. Yeah, man. If you have that sense that you can start with almost anything. I know you were joking right now, but you can start with like I've said the worst jokes in front of customers where my salesperson really felt the need to actually apologize on my behalf, except the customers were happy and they enjoyed me and they felt, oh, this is an awkward guy who's kind of like us, you know? He's an engineer who looks at his shoes when he's talking. So, you know, you can if you want to start with once upon a time, you could, as long as you make it funny and don't lose the audience.
Yeah.
It's a performance. Sales engineering is a performance. You want to be engaging. You don't want to be overbearing. You have to know when to like show emotion, know when to be stoic, and do whatever it is that you need to help the customer through their journey. So yeah, you want to start with once upon a time, by all means.
It sounds like you're doing something of an objection handling. Is that what it is?
Well, objection handling usually happens when there's an objection, but sometimes customers are silent. It could be used for almost anything. Like it literally could be used for almost anything. You can open up the call with a story of you working with a customer and helping them out. You can wait till they ask an interesting question. It's like, oh man, that reminds me of something. Another customer of mine was doing something. Once upon a time, there was a customer who had that similar issue. And this is what we went through to actually help them solve it. I don't like the term objection handling, frankly, because it sounds like you're kind of trying to handle the customer. And I know I might be splitting hairs, but whenever there's an objection, there's usually a reason behind it. And I had a guy on the podcast, his name is Doug Brown, who wrote a book just about objection handling. And he talks about like people, when they object, they say there's no money, or I don't have time for this, or it could be that there's no money or they don't have time, or it could be there's a reason behind it. They were burned in the past or something. So it's objection understanding, if you will. You're trying to understand their objection, what's the reason behind it, and then offer an alternative or help them get past that roadblock that they're facing within their own psychology. And I think you might have seen that in your own career in the past.
I'm just uncovering now that one could also say objection understanding, which I feel gives a different feel to it.
Yeah, I just came up with this word on the spot right now. Like it's not a convention. It's just the term objection handling for me rubs me the wrong way, because I always felt like I have to handle the customer. Oh, if a customer says this, you say that, and boom, you won. Right? That's what I learned like throughout my first few years as a sales engineer. So customers, there's a checklist. Customer says this, you say this. He says this, you say that. But it doesn't really work like that. There isn't no script. And some people are similar, but they're also different. So you can't handle. There's one person that I've worked with in the past. He objects every time I agree with him. So I learned not to agree with him. Right? That's not very common.
Yeah.
But it depends on the personality of the people you're working with, and that's kind of where salespeople and SEs could shine. The better you understand the people you're working with. And Aileen McNabb, she's a SE coach, I believe, out of Vancouver, who just doesn't just talk, but she talks a lot about personalities, understanding your own personality and understanding the personality of the people you're working with or your customers. So if you're going to do objection handling, you're going to have to figure out who you're working with. If it's someone who's a straight shooter, you might have to be a straight shooter. If it's someone who's like shy and doesn't give you all the information, you might have to like pull it out of them by sharing stories. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole question was about stories, if I recall correctly.
Yep. You were on an interview with Chris White, the demo doc, and you spoke about what was an experience you had where you either conducted it yourself or saw in a colleague that left you and perhaps the prospective clients in awe or felt was super entertaining?
That's an interesting question. For me personally, it's just I've had many entertaining calls. Like I want to leave the call with the customers laughing. mainly because that helps me build a relationship with them, right? You know, the more you get them to laugh, the lower their guard is. Now the problem is sometimes you make too many jokes, and now the customer's annoyed by you. But throughout my career, I've learned where that line is, and because I'm working with the similar customers, so the same customers, I know who to joke with and who not to joke with. I'm not sure that answered any of your question, or if you answered your question at all. If not, give me another chance. Please give me another chance.
I wanted to know a little bit more, like as an example, like what would one do to be entertaining but still carry off the professionalism on a customer call?
Well, be human. You and I are joking right now, right? It's I'm conveying a lot of information, I think, and I'm making jokes about it. You're also laughing at my jokes, so that's the essence of building a relationship. That's the essence of being entertaining. Be human and talk to people. You're not just there to, I think that's the big thing. People are either there to convince somebody else to do something or to get money out of someone. That's the feeling I get. And when you're in that mentality, you're already, it's already going to seem fake if you're trying to be entertaining. But if you're generally there and you try to, you think you're going to enjoy meeting that person or talking to that person. I genuinely enjoy talking to my customers, at least some of them or most of them, because they're fun people, you know, and we get to joke around and they laugh at my jokes. The more they laugh at my jokes, the happier I am. Makes me feel good about myself that my jokes aren't stupid. And the more laid back they are. Does it mean they're going to buy from me just because I make them laugh? No, I still have to actually provide a service. But it makes it easier for them to buy versus buying from someone they don't like.
That works. I know of a person who's now the VP of sales engineering, and he stated he wanted to take away the idea of sales engineers doing demos and have it instead automated or tucked in an FAQ link on a website. He didn't want sales engineers to be doing demos, but focusing on other more pressing matters. Let's talk about this. From your perspective, do you think in the next 5 to 10 years that industry should delete, they should take out sales engineers doing demos?
No. Do you want me to elaborate?
Yes.
That will only work if it's a simple product with not too many options, if it solves one problem. If you have a product that, if you're in IT has so many different problems that they need to solve. Security, operations, there isn't one demo that will solve all the problems. Now, unless you want to record a demo for every problem that your product could solve, then sure, if you're able to do that, you're just taking out the human element from it. Like, people don't want to buy from robots. At least that's my opinion. Like, if I'm going to buy something, if it's like $30 a month, sure, I can just put in my credit card and call it a day. But if you're talking like $1 million a month or a year, I think you want to be more sure than just whatever the robot is telling you. Even if the robot knows more than a human being. Just because of that, like we were talking earlier, be a human being and talk to your customers. Customers want a human being talking to them. My opinion, I don't like, what's more important. I mean, obviously you have to do a proper discovery to do a proper demo, but what's more important than actually doing a demo? I wouldn't know. I'd love to talk to that director, that VP, to understand what his thoughts are, because maybe I'm misunderstanding what he's saying.
So speaking of management, what's the telltale sign or red flags of a bad SE manager?
When they don't check up on you, they don't ask you what you need, if they don't offer you a way to learn. Like, are you talking telltale sign from an interview perspective?
Yeah, let's start off with that, because obviously it's people trying to break into a brand new role. So yeah, how about that? Like, what would be telltale signs in an interview?
Indecisiveness. It's like, oh, I don't know what the process is. We're gonna have to talk to so many people, and you know, they're not in a hurry to actually hire you. Because if they're not in a hurry to hire you right now, Are they going to be in a hurry to give you a promotion? Or if you have a problem, are they going to be in a hurry to actually help you do that? It's not a telltale sign that it's a bad SE manager, but it's a telltale sign that it's a bad SE organizational structure is when you ask them, like, how many SEs do you manage? I mean, Akshat from SENY and I talked about this. If they have like 6 or 7, then they might have time to actually mentor you. If they have 20, they're just doing paperwork the entire time. From an SE's perspective, SEs are fairly independent, right? And generally speaking, you only talk to your managers like when you're just checking up on them, seeing how they're doing, or whenever there's some escalation of some sort. And you want to check, like, will they have my back, right? So there aren't any. It's kind of hard to tell ahead of time if it's a bad human being or a good human being. If you enjoy talking to that person, then they're most likely, like, you'll most likely hit it off. If you don't enjoy talking to that person, you most likely will not hit it off as SE and SE manager, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know you've said before on another podcast, so you've been on a few, like Sales Excellence, Pre-Sales Collective, the networks. I mean, you've been on a few podcasts, but I recall you talking about you yourself wanting to be, you considered the management route, right? The idea of managing SEs, especially for the fact that you could help mentor them to be successful. Hypothetically, if you were to be the vice president or senior director of sales engineers, the two-part question is, what would be the culture you tried to form? And what would be your expectations for new SEs? So the first one is, what would be the culture you tried to form as a VP or senior director of sales engineers?
A culture of collaboration. Right? SEs, we're commission-based. And sometimes we get so drawn out into our own deals that we forget that we have colleagues. A lot of SEs actually do collaboration. So that will probably happen without my express intent in creating a collaborative environment. But if it's not, then I'm going to have to I would have to push it. But there's also collaboration with people outside of our companies. People within the same company tend to do the same mistakes. If someone does if like the team lead doesn't know how to do a good demo, then almost everybody that they teach will not know how to do a good demo. If they don't know how to do a good discovery, everybody they teach will not know how to do a good discovery. So there isn't an outside influence. And, you kind of have your blinders on, this is what we do and this is how we do it. So you can just keep doing it that way. So I would want them to like reach out and learn from people outside, like join SENY, join We the SEs, as many organizations that they can, just so that they can see what other people have. And I think that was the first question, right?
Yep. And then what would be your expectations for new SEs? Like, people are brand new, not just to the company, but just to the whole brand, I would say, new SEs coming into your organization.
The question is, what would be their expectations of me? Like, they're new SEs. I don't really have much. I expect them to be coachable and try to learn, but I also expect that I would provide them the environment to do so. Like, here's the thing, like, people within, like, SE managers, SE leaders, and SEs, they're great people. They want to do the best they can, but they're not coaches. They're not mentors. That's not their job. It may be part of their job, but they don't do it on a day-to-day basis. So it always ends up being like, hey, call me if you have any questions. And then, like, okay, now I have like 15 questions, and I'm going to call this guy and ask him 15 questions, or this lady called him, ask him 15 questions. Maybe I should just wait a few days and just sprinkle them out. And I've seen that happen. It's happened to me. The difference was, instead of doing that, I just, instead of messaging my mentor with all the questions, I just try to meet as many SEs in the company and sprinkle my questions to all the different SEs. So I would want to provide them coaching, outside coaching. I'm doing that for other SEs from other companies right now. I'm coaching. I mean, I work with you. I'm working with an SE, like a few of them outside their own company, as a third-party coach, just to help them out. And that's what I would want. I would want a third-party coach, because I can go get them Chris White's class, and it will be the most amazing class ever. and we can do a few follow-ups. But if there isn't a coach who's trying to get them to actually implement what they learned from Chris, they're going to forget everything. And for those who don't know, Chris White is he's a demo doctor or tech sales master. So he knows his stuff. We just have to get people to do what he's saying. That's what I would look for. And that's the service I'm offering.
Awesome. Cool. So during the making of this Tony Moze show, this current right here, you have currently recorded We the Sales Engineers podcast, 181 episodes of it. You're almost at 200 episodes. I believe that deserves a buble or a nice fizzy bubbly drink of one's choice, which I know is part of your drink arsenal. I have 3 things to ask within this. What are the top 3 things you've learned about yourself if you compared yourself from episode 1 versus episode 181? 2, through all your shows thus far, what have you learned about the individuals you interviewed from a personal or human psychological standpoint? And 3, what was the common theme of these people looking at them from a professional standpoint? So going back to the first one is, what have you learned about yourself if you compared yourself from episode 1 versus episode 181?
Okay. Technically, I just recorded 185 today.
Oh, steps ahead.
And first 3 or 4 episodes were with people that I knew. I asked like friends and colleagues of mine from different companies to come on and have a discussion. Right now, I'm talking to random strangers. Like I never thought I'd be reaching out to people. But one thing that happened today with my guest from today's show, he was concerned that he didn't know what he was going to talk about. And then when I kind of did a pre-call with him, we figured out what we're going to talk about. And today, after the call, he tells me, Ramzi, you did the best discovery anyone's ever done on me. And you made it easy for me to come on that show because within minutes, you made me find out things about myself. So if you're talking about like knowing about myself, today, I learned that I can put people at ease and get them and ask them questions that get them thinking about themselves a little bit better and to find topics that they'd be interested in talking about. So that's what I learned today, not through 181 episodes, just today.
Okay, 185. You're like 4 steps ahead already. Okay. Secondly, through all your shows thus far, what have you learned, about the individuals you interviewed from a personal, or human psychology standpoint? Like, what was the common theme of these people from their personal standpoint?
They love helping other people. I mean, they wouldn't be on the show otherwise. I mean, my show, it's successful, but it's not going to make anybody famous, right? They're not doing it for fame. And I've had John Kerr on my show. You're familiar with John Kerr? Author, master in technical sales, like the premier SE leader. Yeah, that's the book. He was on show 18. He had no business. Like, I didn't even have a show at that time. He had no business being on my show. The SE community, the SE sales engineers, are the best community in the world because they want to help each other. And it doesn't matter who it is, even if it's from a competing company, they're just there to help. So if you have, and you've seen that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've talked to several SEs who, generally speaking, would never, why would they talk to you?
Right.
And, I got several SEs to jump on my podcast. Why? Other than because, hey, I figured I can help. So that's from a personal perspective. From a professional perspective, they're all learners. They all want to get better. They know that they're not perfect and they just want to learn a better way of doing things, which is why they listen to the podcast, which is why there's SE and why people share information amongst each other, why people talk to you and they can learn from you. I've learned from you. I mean, you've helped me out with my YouTube channel, and I can learn from my son who's 5 years old some things. I'm not comparing you to my son, but I'm just saying that's like, you can learn from almost anybody. You're much taller, I think. Uh,
Nobody knows. I'm sitting down.
yeah, so that's what I think about from a professional perspective.
Awesome. So you said before that you're an introvert. There's a book by an author named Susan Cain called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. I'm an extrovert, and that book opened my eyes about introversion. The myth I previously knew was that you must be an extrovert to be in sales, let alone sales engineering. So, what were some challenges you had to overcome as an introvert in your sales engineering career?
Like as an introvert, I enjoy working with products more than working with people. And I can build relationships. I've built relationship with you. I've built with a lot of individual people relationships. I just don't like building relationships where I jump into a meeting room with 10 people. Now I have to build a relationship with 10 people. I struggled there, and I still struggle, and I'm working on it. Something in sales or sales engineering, you have to work with people you don't like. I think I'm not an extrovert, so I can't really know for sure. But I think extroverts find it easier to work with people they don't like. Whereas like introverts, we don't want to go meet people to begin with. And now we have to go have lunch with that guy that I never wanted to talk to in the first place and be nice to them. I like that's what I've struggled with. I've overcome a lot, but that I think that's the biggest thing that I struggle with, because I'm generally fairly honest with the people. Like people, if I don't like someone, they will know. I'm not gonna hide it from you. Now do that with a customer and see how well you'll do in your company. So yeah.
Answer this in one simple word: fact or myth. Does a sales engineer need to be a software engineer?
Fiction.
And if you could explain this, what are some other myths about sales engineering?
You have to be a drinker. What are some of them? I mean, there's a lot of myths about sales engineering. I don't know. I feel constrained. Is it still one word?
No. You could
Okay.
you could explain if you want. Yeah, this one you
like
definitely explain.
the introvert versus extrovert thing. That's there. You lose your technology or your technology knowledge. That's I actually have. Hold on. I created a YouTube video that I didn't post yet, but hey, I'll give you a sneak peek. Customer's always right. Not true. You don't need to know how to code, or you need to know how to code. You work for salespeople, not with salespeople, and you have to have an engineering degree.
Love it. Just had to get it from, I forget how you say the phrase, the American, the North American phrase, like it came from the horse's mouth.
I'm a horse.
So a guy in my network who went from being in customer success, then ultimately a director of sales engineers, once told me that you can break down the SE role and responsibility through knowing where you are on the continuum of sales engineer. This seems like a good personality test of where one believes they might fit. He said, SE professionals need to know where their strengths are and notice that most fall into either the big S or big E concept. Either you're stronger in the sales part and less in the engineering part, or you're weak in the sales part, but stronger in the engineering part. So you're either a big S as in sales or big E in engineering. What do you think about this? Does this mean if someone is super passionate about tech and sales, that he or she could find themselves in an SE role? Meaning, could they be more positive and hopeful that they can find a certain company as a home for their type of personality and makeup?
Yeah, so I think I've talked about this on my podcast as well. There's a sliding scale between sales skills and technical skills. I talk S and T, not S and E. So you can fall, if you want to be an SE, you can fall anywhere in that scale. If you're all the way down to the S, then you probably should go in sales more than sales engineering. If you're all the way down in the T, you should probably be in post sales support or something like that. Now, you can move around through it, but you always have to have some skills related to the other side. So if you're going to be an engineer who does sales, you're going to have to know how to actually do sales. Like, the company you work for has to find your strengths as well. I work with a few different SEs. One SE is just amazing from a technology perspective and not so great with the selling part. Like, they know how to talk about the product very well, but not in a way that the customer will want to buy it. Right? I use it more for post sales. I have other SE who works fairly well, and he's still on the T side, but understands a little bit more about sales, and I use him more for post sales. And I use myself for a little bit, like when it's less technical at this point, because I've been a hybrid for so long. I'm doing more sales stuff than T stuff. So yeah, like people within that scale can be in sales engineering. The question is, would they enjoy it? If someone loves the technology and doesn't want to talk to people, they're going to struggle. Right? If you love the technology and you like sharing it with people, then you might be happy.
So sales engineer, sales engineer, sales engineer. There are so many names that are synonymous with sales engineer. They call them solutions engineer, systems engineer, technical solutions engineer, applications engineer, sales consultant, or solutions consultant. Why do you think there's so many names?
Well, the engineer part, changing it from engineer to consultant or architect or anything like that, it could be for legal reasons, honestly, because not everybody, at least in North America, can claim to be an engineer. You have to have an engineering degree with a like, you be part of the, like in Canada and Ontario, it's the PEng, professional engineers of Ontario. So you have to be part of that to be able to say that I'm an engineer or a professional engineer. So they could change that. Now, it's the whole word. Like, I wrote a blog about it. The whole word is like to show what you're focused on. Sales engineering shows that you're focused on the sale. Solutions engineering, you're focused on solutions. In the end, it's going to be the same thing. Applications engineering, you work with the application. I don't know why they chose that. Like, for me, in the end, whatever you're being called, when you talk to a customer, in the end, you're going to say, yeah, I'm a sales engineer. Right? It doesn't matter. Like, you could be called solutions engineer. Like, the customer is going to look at you, like, what does that mean? Like, I work in sales, so I'm a sales engineer. Right? My title was systems engineer in my previous company. Nobody knew what that meant. Like, are you going to engineer my system? It's like, no, I'm going to sell it to you. So,
yeah,
I have a couple of blogs about specifically about that topic, just because it annoys me.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, now I'm thinking about it as I think about this question now. You just said something about this. But when I was doing my outreach, it's just so interesting to see when you go on someone's LinkedIn and they say, I'm a software quality, I forget what, but there's like something, software quality assurance. I forget something else too. Like I've seen something that has these names, but then when you probe and you ask, you say, what is it that you actually do? You find out they're not, like, I think one person could have sworn they put software quality engineer, but again, don't quote me. But when I did probing, they go, yeah, I just put data into an Excel sheet. And I'm just like, wow, like, where does that come from? But I also remember too, that when I was working in the psychology world, social work field, I'm gonna tell you this, man. You talked about the Ontario and being like saying like, hey, if I'm part of this, then I'm truly an engineer. Same thing when you're in the psychology world. You can't be considered a social worker unless you have the licensure, which the licensure entails you have to be monitored by a very seasoned person who has a licensure themselves, and you have to take the certification or the licensure exam. The state, from your state or whatever, a province that says, hey, you're qualified to be one. So I had this one job, and I'm going to tell you the truth, and it made sense why this person said software too, but I had this one job back in psychology where they're like, call yourself a social worker. And I'm like, why? Why would I do that? Why would I jump into someone as an in-home therapist? Why would I go in someone's home, taking care of a family and say, hey, I'm a social worker, when I don't have that? I have a master's and a bachelor's degree in psychology, but not the licensure, not those hours I had to put in being supervised and taking a licensure exam by the state. I'm just some guy who just happens to have a bachelor's on steroids. And I don't mean to discount myself. I'm just saying I don't have those credentials. But they're like, do it. Why? The rationale was they want to come off with the credibility of their business saying like, look, we have these sophisticated people who do these things that are industry standard. And I guess you could kind of get away with that. And I'm just like, that's kind of interesting. So when I reached out to someone who said they were like software quality, perhaps assurance, I forget what the last part was. When they said, oh yeah, I just put stuff in the data, I put just data in an Excel sheet. And I'm like, wow, you're called that? That just like threw me off. But then again, it reminded me of why a company would make them, their department be like, yeah, just call yourself a software engineer. Which, by the way, now I'm remembering now, like it was actually software engineer, software developer, and I'd call them like, what do you do? Oh, well, actually, I just put data into an Excel sheet. And I'm like, why? They're like, yeah, because that's what my department wanted us to call ourselves. So I was like, okay. So this is like the stuff you have to uncover when you ask this question, but I don't know, it just comes down to like, I don't know, the business wanting to make sure that they have a whole like army of people to just like there.
It's also a marketing play. So if you're looking for an SE job, like part of what the employers want to do is try to make it as obvious as possible to attract as much talent as possible. But also on the flip side, if you as a aspiring SE can't figure out which role is customer facing, which role isn't, you should not be an SE. Like go do something else. But yeah.
Cool. Last 5 questions now. We're getting to this part of the end. If looking at the next 6 months versus 1 to 3 years, what are your visions for We the Sales Engineer podcast and, or your YouTube channel?
Well, so what I want to do is, and I haven't announced it yet, but I am trying to turn We the SEs, We the Sales Engineers, not specifically the podcast, but We the Sales Engineers into like a viable business, because I enjoy coaching people. I enjoy working with you. I enjoy working with the people that I'm working with. So I'll have more details at a later date, but that's what I'm trying to do. It's my goal is to help. What was my number? I have my number up here somewhere, but at least like 1,000 SEs in the next 3 years, or 1,000 aspiring SEs, one way, shape, or form.
Sweet. Awesome, man. What are your thoughts on sales engineers having a social media presence, especially with YouTube videos? What are things for them to consider?
I encourage SEs to have their own media presence, social media presence. They could use it. They could use it for so many different things. Like if they love their product and they think they're going to be part of that product company for a long time, they could use it to sell, like social selling. I don't know if you got Patrick Bisseng's latest book, but it's all about social selling, right? But it's a way of putting yourself out there. Right now, there's a lot of competition. There isn't enough sales engineers out there, and people are fighting to get sales engineers into their companies, except they don't want to hire someone without experience. So if you don't have experience, you're gonna have to find a way to cut through the noise and make yourself visible to other people. Like when I apply to jobs, I mean, part of my podcast, on multiple episodes, at the end of the episodes, whoever I'm talking to, whether it's the VP of sales or SE manager or whoever, it's like, Ramzi, I'm impressed with what you're doing. Do you want a job? Like, that's what it can do for you if you do it properly and consistently. If you're there to post like naked selfies, maybe not a good idea. But if you use it in a proper way, I'm all for it. And again, I don't know who the audience is in terms of, I don't know if they're sales engineers, and if they're not sales engineers, figure out a way to, whatever your role is, the more people know about you, the more you can demand out of your employers. Like if you're in demand, supply and demand, there's only one of you, so that's supply. The more companies want you, the more you can demand out of them. So I guess I'll leave it there because I sound smart saying that.
Some people, if not most people, are afraid of posting anything to their social media for fear that, because it's recorded, and somehow, some way it's recorded. Like now it's there, and now the world can see it, and it's like they want to be on their best foot. And so how does one navigate towards that? I guess like For me,
I wrote a
I don't
blog.
know. Hmm?
I wrote a blog about it. I wrote a blog about it by a company called for a company called Snackwise. But basically, it could be as simple as sharing posts that somebody else wrote.
Okay.
Right? It doesn't have to be complicated. You can start with like the level 1
Yeah.
is just sharing a post and actually putting your thoughts like, when you're sharing it. Don't just like part of my company. I see I'm connected to a few SEs or a few salespeople within my company, and so are our customers. And I see the same post being shared with the same words being shared by every single salesperson in the company. I'm like, dude, you didn't even read that. You just like you use some software to post whatever it is, and you don't. I don't think you know what is written there. If you really want to participate in social media and be thought as a thought leader, which is something that if you don't aspire to, but maybe a thought sharer, you can actually read what you're about to post and like have a one-liner or two-liner comment about what it is that's in there to entice people to read it. And it could be as simple as that.
That makes sense. Yeah. And we're looking at LinkedIn at this moment. Is this where you're like conceptualizing this whole idea from? Like, is that what you're?
Well, yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is, you can share almost like retweet or like I say I'm on social media, but I know I got to click buttons. I don't know what they're doing. So there's a lot of places you can actually reshare somebody else's thoughts. The thing about Twitter is just it's insanity at this point. Like I don't enjoy going on Twitter because it's just very negative. So that's why I don't think for me it doesn't even exist except for when I have something to post.
Awesome. Awesome. Rapid round of 4 questions is What's your favorite alcoholic beverage?
Whiskey, Chivas Regal. It's a simple one.
Nice. What are your top any amount you want to say books you'd recommend to aspiring sales reps or sales engineers?
Sales reps or sales engineers?
How about sales engineers?
Mastering Technical Sales is a must-have. The 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineers is a must-have. Great Demo or Demo to Win. I have a good relationship with I've met both Peter Cohen and Bob Reifstall, but I think they end up being somewhat similar. But for me, main 6 habits, mastering technical sales. Mm-hmm. And from a sales perspective, it could be solution selling or spin selling.
Sweet. What was the last video game you played?
FIFA 2012.
Okay. And what is one meal a day you could eat for 30 days straight?
I've eaten every day for 30 days straight 3 eggs, 2 egg whites, a scoop of quick oats with a couple small scoops of chocolate chips. And it's been almost 30 days.
That sounds about right. That sounds like something that I would consume too. I'll put like protein powder in it. Awesome. In terms of your brand, what are some services that you provide to SEs or aspiring SEs, of all levels?
Coaching right now, if you want to reach out, but stay tuned. Like we're coming out. I do have the course, the Road to Sales Engineering that you just talked about at the beginning. But I'm revamping the website, and there are a couple services that I'm going to offer to sales engineers and aspiring sales engineers if you're interested in that.
Awesome. Where can people find you as well as contact you?
So yeah, LinkedIn is a good place. We, the sales engineers, sign up to the newsletter. I provide what I think is good value there, and also up-to-date news about what we're offering and all that. I didn't know there was going to be a pitch at the end. I would have prepared a better pitch, but follow me on Twitter if you want. But it's the same post from LinkedIn. So I'd rather you follow me on LinkedIn.
So Ramzi Marjaba, founder of We the Sales Engineers, thank you for coming on the show. And everyone who listened or watched, if you like this video, give a thumbs up and comment what was the most interesting part of this show. Take care, everyone.